power of human intuition. What if one of humanity's most remarkable abilities isn't something we learn, but something we're born with? Across history, people have described moments when they simply knew something without being able to explain why. A sudden feeling that changed the course of a journey. An unexplained sense of danger moments before disaster struck. A powerful impression that led to a life-changing decision. These experiences are often described as intuition, an inner knowing that seems to operate beyond conscious thought. In this exploration, we'll examine the fascinating world of human intuition through the lenses of psychology, neuroscience, philosophy, and personal experience. We'll discover how the brain processes enormous amounts of information beneath our awareness, producing insights that can feel almost supernatural. At the same time, we'll investigate claims that intuition may extend beyond ordinary perception, including stories of precognition, synchronicity, and extraordinary coincidences. We'll look at groundbreaking scientific studies on unconscious decision-making, the role of pattern recognition, and why experienced professionals from firefighters to surgeons often rely on intuition during critical moments. We'll also explore how different cultures and spiritual traditions have viewed intuition as a form of inner wisdom, divine guidance, or heightened awareness for thousands of years. Can intuition be trained and strengthened? Is it simply the brain recognizing subtle patterns too quickly for conscious thought? Or does it hint at aspects of consciousness that science has yet to fully understand? Join us as we separate fact from fiction, examine compelling research, hear remarkable real-life stories, and explore one of the most intriguing abilities of the human mind. Whether viewed as psychology, instinct, spiritual insight, or something still unexplained, the power of human intuition continues to inspire curiosity and challenge our understanding of what it truly means to know. Part 1. The Inner Voice. We all know. Have you ever had a feeling you simply couldn't ignore? Perhaps you changed your route home for no obvious reason, only to learn there had been a major accident on the road you usually take. Maybe you met someone for the very first time and instantly felt they could be trusted, or just as strongly, that something wasn't quite right. Or perhaps you've awakened in the middle of the night with the overwhelming certainty that a loved one needed you, only to discover later that something significant had happened at exactly that time. Experiences like these are surprisingly common. Almost everyone, regardless of culture, age, or belief system, has experienced moments where an answer seemed to appear without conscious reasoning. We call it intuition. Some refer to it as a gut feeling. Others describe it as instinct, inner knowing, a sixth sense, or simply listening to the heart. Although the names differ, they all describe the same mysterious phenomenon, arriving at a conclusion without being fully aware of how we reached it. For thousands of years, intuition has fascinated humanity. Ancient civilizations believed it was a gift from the gods. Mystics viewed it as communication with a higher consciousness. Religious traditions often described it as divine guidance. Modern psychology, however, generally sees intuition as the subconscious mind rapidly processing information beyond conscious awareness. Yet, despite centuries of study, intuition remains one of the least understood aspects of human experience. It exists somewhere between science and mystery. Unlike logical reasoning, intuition doesn't arrive step by step. There's no visible calculation, no list of evidence, no deliberate analysis. Instead, it often appears in an instant, a feeling, a certainty, a quiet voice that seems to come from nowhere. Sometimes it proves astonishingly accurate, other times it can be completely wrong. This raises an important question. If intuition isn't always reliable, why do so many successful people rely upon it? Elite athletes often speak about just knowing where the ball will go before it moves. Experienced firefighters have described sensing danger seconds before a building collapsed, even though no obvious warning signs were visible. Doctors occasionally report having an inexplicable feeling that a patient is in far greater danger than test results suggest. Police detectives sometimes develop instincts during investigations that later prove correct after new evidence emerges. In many professions, intuition isn't viewed as magic. It's considered experience operating below conscious awareness. The human brain constantly absorbs millions of pieces of information every second. Body language, tone of voice, facial expressions, environmental details, patterns from years, even decades of previous experiences. Most of this information never reaches conscious thought, yet the subconscious continues processing it all. Occasionally, the result rises to the surface as what feels like an unexplained certainty. Scientists increasingly believe this hidden processing explains many intuitive experiences, but not all of them. There remain countless stories that appear to stretch beyond conventional explanations. People dreaming about events before they occur, twins sensing each other's distress from thousands of miles apart, parents suddenly knowing something is wrong with a child they've had no contact with, people narrowly avoiding disasters because of an overwhelming feeling they couldn't explain. Are these simply coincidences that stand out because they're memorable? Or are they evidence that human consciousness operates in ways science has yet to uncover? These questions have inspired decades of research and centuries of debate. Believers point to thousands of documented personal accounts. Skeptics remind us that memory is imperfect and coincidence is more common than most people realize. Somewhere between these two positions lies one of the greatest mysteries of the human mind. As we begin this journey, it's important to approach intuition with both curiosity and critical thinking. We'll explore extraordinary stories, but also examine the psychological mechanisms that may explain them. We'll look at scientific experiments alongside spiritual traditions. We'll hear from neuroscientists, psychologists, philosophers, and researchers who have spent their careers studying this remarkable ability. Because whether intuition is ultimately explained by hidden brain processes, evolved survival instincts, or something beyond our current understanding, one fact remains undeniable. Every one of us has experienced moments when we simply knew. The question is, what exactly was doing the knowing? Part 2. Intuition throughout history. Long before neuroscience, long before psychology, long before anyone understood how the brain processed information, human beings were already speaking about intuition. Every civilization, separated by oceans and centuries, developed its own understanding of an invisible inner guidance that seemed to whisper truths beyond ordinary thought. The names were different, the beliefs were different, but the experience was remarkably familiar. Ancient Egypt believed wisdom could come through the heart. To the Egyptians, the heart was not merely an organ that pumped blood, it was the center of intelligence, morality, and spiritual understanding. During the famous weighing of the heart in the afterlife, it was believed that a person's true nature could not be hidden. The heart knew. Ancient Greece offered another perspective. The philosopher Socrates often spoke of what he called his daimonion, an inner voice that never told him what to do, but warned him against making certain choices. Socrates trusted this mysterious guidance throughout his life, even when others questioned his decisions. His writings describe moments where reason alone could not explain his certainty. His intuition became one of the most famous examples in Western philosophy. Plato later suggested that the soul possessed knowledge beyond ordinary learning. He believed that truth could sometimes be remembered rather than discovered through logical reasoning. To him, intuition was connected to a deeper level of reality. In ancient India, intuition occupied an even more central role. The Vedas and Upanishads described higher states of consciousness where direct knowledge could arise without intellectual effort. Meditation was seen not merely as relaxation, but as a method of quieting the mind so inner wisdom could emerge. Thousands of years later, millions still practice these techniques for the same reason. In China, Taoist philosophy emphasized living in harmony with the natural flow of the universe. Rather than forcing decisions through constant analysis, one should cultivate sensitivity to subtle patterns and act in accordance with the Tao, the natural way. The best decisions often came effortlessly, not because they required less intelligence, but because they reflected a deeper awareness. Buddhist traditions also recognized intuitive insight. While careful study and disciplined practice were valued, enlightenment itself was often described as arising suddenly. After years of preparation, understanding could appear in an instant, a moment of complete clarity, not built step by step, but experienced all at once. Among indigenous cultures across the world, Intuition was often considered an essential survival skill. Hunters learned to sense changes in the environment that others overlooked. Elders spoke of listening to nature, animals, weather, dreams, silence itself. Knowledge wasn't found only through observation. It was also received through awareness. Many Native American traditions describe dreams and visions as important sources of guidance. Australian Aboriginal cultures developed complex systems known as dreaming, where spiritual insight and lived experience were deeply connected. Across Africa, oral traditions often tell stories of ancestors communicating wisdom through signs, symbols, and intuitive understanding. Despite vast cultural differences, one remarkable pattern appears again and again. People believe that intuition became clearer when the mind became quieter. Silence, reflection, prayer, meditation. Time spent alone in nature. These practices appear repeatedly across civilizations, separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years. Was this simply because quiet minds think more clearly, or were these traditions attempting to access something beyond ordinary consciousness? No one can answer with certainty. As civilization advanced, intuition gradually lost its place in many intellectual circles. The scientific revolution transformed human understanding of the world. Observation, measurement, experimentation, logic, these became the foundations of knowledge. Anything that could not be measured was often viewed with skepticism. This shift produced extraordinary advances: medicine, engineering, astronomy, technology. Yet something changed. Intuition increasingly became associated with superstition rather than wisdom. Subjective experience was considered unreliable. Only objective evidence could be trusted. For centuries, the two perspectives remained divided: reason on one side, intuition on the other. But during the 20th century, psychologists began noticing something unexpected. People frequently made correct decisions before they could explain why. Experts often recognized patterns instantly, while novices struggled to analyze them. The subconscious appeared capable of processing far more information than conscious awareness could handle. Perhaps the ancient traditions had observed something real after all, not necessarily supernatural, but certainly profound. Today, researchers are once again studying intuition with modern scientific tools: brain imaging, behavioral psychology, decision science, artificial intelligence. Each offers new clues about how humans arrive at knowledge without conscious reasoning. Ironically, after thousands of years, science may be rediscovering questions that ancient civilizations were asking all along. What is this inner knowing? Where does it come from? And how much of our understanding happens without us ever realizing it? Part 3. What science says about intuition. For centuries, intuition was viewed as something mystical, a mysterious force, an invisible guide, a gift that could not be measured or explained. Then neuroscience entered the conversation. As scientists developed new ways to study the human brain, they discovered something remarkable. Much of what we call intuition may actually be the result of extraordinary mental processing happening beneath conscious awareness. Your conscious mind is incredibly powerful, but it represents only a tiny fraction of your brain's activity. Every second, your senses collect an astonishing amount of information: the movement of people around you, changes in facial expressions, tiny shifts in tone of voice, smells, sounds, colors, temperature, memories connected to previous experiences. Your conscious attention can focus on only a small portion of this information. The rest is processed automatically, without you ever realizing it. Psychologists often refer to this as unconscious or subconscious processing. Although the exact terminology varies, the principle remains the same. The brain is constantly recognizing patterns outside conscious awareness. Sometimes those hidden calculations suddenly emerge as a feeling. I know this is the right choice. I shouldn't trust this person. Something isn't right. The conscious mind experiences the conclusion, but not the countless observations that created it. One of the first researchers to explore this idea was Nobel Prize-winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman. He described two different modes of thinking. One is fast, automatic, effortless. The other is slow, careful, logical. Fast thinking allows us to make thousands of decisions every day without becoming overwhelmed. We don't consciously calculate every step we take. We simply walk. We don't analyze every facial expression before recognizing happiness or anger. Our brains identify the patterns almost instantly. Intuition appears to operate largely within this fast-thinking system. It is quick because the brain has already done the work behind the scenes. This becomes especially powerful through experience. Imagine an experienced firefighter entering a burning building. Within seconds, something feels wrong. There is no visible danger, nothing obvious, yet the firefighter orders everyone outside immediately. Moments later, the floor collapses. Stories like this have fascinated researchers for decades. How did the firefighter know? Psychologist Gary Klein spent years studying professionals who routinely make split-second decisions. Firefighters, military commanders, emergency physicians, pilots, police officers. Again and again, he found that experts often relied on intuition rather than deliberate analysis. But their intuition wasn't random. It was built upon years of accumulated experience. Their brains had encountered similar situations thousands of times. Without conscious effort, they recognized subtle warning signs invisible to beginners. In this view, intuition is not magic, it is compressed experience. The brain instantly comparing the present to countless memories stored over a lifetime. Researchers have also discovered that the body sometimes reacts before conscious awareness. In one famous series of experiments, participants were asked to choose cards from several decks. Unknown to them, some decks consistently produced losses while others generated gains. Before participants consciously realized which decks were risky, their bodies already knew. Their palms began sweating whenever they reached toward the dangerous decks. Their nervous systems recognized the pattern before their conscious minds did. This phenomenon became known as the somatic marker hypothesis. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio proposed that emotions and bodily responses help guide decision-making long before logical reasoning catches up. In other words, sometimes your body notices danger before your mind can explain it. Modern brain imaging has revealed that intuition isn't controlled by a single intuition center. Instead, many regions work together. The prefrontal cortex evaluates possibilities. The hippocampus compares present experiences with stored memories. The amygdala rapidly detects emotional significance and potential threats. Networks throughout the brain exchange information in milliseconds. The result can feel instantaneous, a sudden certainty, a gut feeling, a quiet inner voice. Scientists now recognize that intuition plays an essential role in everyday life. Without it, even simple decisions would become exhausting. Choosing what to eat, driving through traffic, reading another person's emotions, recognizing danger, understanding humor, navigating conversations, all depend, at least in part, on unconscious mental processing. Yet science also offers an important warning. Intuition is not infallible. The same rapid processing that produces brilliant insights can also produce mistakes. Biases, assumptions, false pattern recognition, fear, prejudice, past trauma, all can influence intuitive judgments without us realizing it. Sometimes intuition reflects genuine expertise. Other times it reflects unconscious bias. Learning the difference is one of the greatest challenges in decision-making. So while neuroscience has explained much about intuition, important questions remain. Can intuition sometimes provide information that cannot be explained by ordinary perception? Or does every intuitive experience ultimately arise from hidden brain processes? That question has led researchers into one of the most controversial areas of scientific investigation: the possibility that intuition might occasionally reach beyond the limits of our known senses. If genuine, such findings would challenge conventional ideas about time and perception. However, many scientists remain unconvinced. Replication has proven difficult, and alternative explanations continue to be explored. Perhaps the most controversial research involved government-funded investigations into remote viewing. During the Cold War, several intelligence agencies became interested in claims that certain individuals could describe distant locations or hidden objects without physically seeing them. Over many years, researchers conducted numerous experiments under controlled conditions. Some sessions produced descriptions that appeared surprisingly accurate. Many others were vague or incorrect. When the programs eventually ended, Official evaluations concluded that the evidence had not demonstrated sufficient reliability for intelligence operations. Yet the data remains the subject of ongoing debate among researchers and historians. What makes these studies so fascinating is not that they provide definitive answers. They do not. Instead, they reveal just how difficult it is to study phenomena that may be subtle, unpredictable, or influenced by countless variables. Even today, no widely accepted scientific theory explains how information could travel beyond the known senses without a physical mechanism. Modern neuroscience generally maintains that perception depends upon the brain receiving information through ordinary sensory channels. Extraordinary claims therefore require extraordinary evidence. And that evidence remains a matter of intense disagreement. Still, millions of people continue to report experiences they believe cannot be explained by coincidence or subconscious observation alone. Whether those experiences represent undiscovered aspects of consciousness, rare statistical events, or the remarkable ability of the human brain to detect patterns remains one of the greatest unanswered questions in science. The search continues, not because intuition has been proven to transcend the senses, but because the mystery has never been fully resolved. Part 5. Extraordinary Stories of Intuition. Science provides data, statistics, controlled experiments, carefully measured results. But throughout history, it is the personal stories that have captured the imagination. Stories that leave people asking, how could they possibly have known? Whether viewed as coincidence, subconscious perception, or something beyond current scientific understanding, these accounts continue to fascinate researchers and skeptics alike. One of the most frequently reported forms of intuition involves sudden danger. There are countless stories of people changing their plans for reasons they cannot explain. A traveler misses a train because of an inexplicable feeling. A family decides not to attend an event at the last minute. A commuter takes a different route home. Sometimes nothing unusual happens, but occasionally, they later discover they unknowingly avoided an accident or disaster. These stories spread quickly because they seem almost impossible to ignore. Yet psychologists remind us that for every dramatic example remembered, there may be thousands of similar feelings that led nowhere and were quickly forgotten. Our minds naturally preserve remarkable coincidences. Ordinary events disappear from memory. Perhaps the most emotionally powerful stories involve parents. Many mothers and fathers describe moments when they suddenly became overwhelmed by the certainty that something was wrong with their child. Some report waking in the middle of the night with intense anxiety. Others abruptly stop what they are doing to make an unexpected phone call. In certain cases, they later learn that an illness, accident, or emergency occurred at approximately the same time. Researchers have documented many such accounts. Whether these experiences result from coincidence, heightened emotional sensitivity, or an unknown connection remains uncertain. Twins provide another intriguing category. For generations, identical twins have reported sensing one another's emotions despite being separated by great distances. One twin suddenly experiences fear or sadness. Hours later, they discover the other twin was facing a crisis at that very moment. Some twins even describe speaking the same words simultaneously or making identical decisions independently. Scientists have proposed several explanations: shared genetics, similar personalities, parallel life experiences, strong emotional bonds. These factors may account for many similarities, yet some stories remain difficult to explain completely. Dreams have also played a central role in reports of intuition. Throughout history, people have claimed to dream about future events before they happened. Sometimes the dreams are symbolic, sometimes startlingly specific. One of the most famous historical examples concerns Abraham Lincoln. According to accounts recorded by friends after his death, Lincoln reportedly described a disturbing dream in which he wandered through the White House and encountered mourners gathered around a coffin. When he asked who had died, he was told it was the president. Only days later, Lincoln was assassinated. Historians continue to debate the accuracy of these accounts, and some details may have become embellished over time. Nevertheless, the story remains one of history's most famous examples of an apparent premonition. Another often cited case involves the sinking of the Titanic. Following the disaster in 1912, newspapers collected numerous reports from people who claimed they had experienced dreams or uneasy feelings before the voyage. Some canceled their reservations. Others encouraged relatives not to sail. Because these stories were collected after the tragedy, historians caution that hindsight and selective memory may have influenced many of the accounts. Still, they remain part of the enduring folklore surrounding one of history's greatest maritime disasters. One remarkable example that receives considerable attention is the story of Morgan Robertson. 14 years before the Titanic sank, Robertson published a novel titled Futility, or The Wreck of the Titan. His fictional ship, the Titan, bore striking similarities to the Titanic. Both were described as enormous luxury liners considered nearly unsinkable. Both struck icebergs in the North Atlantic during April. Both carried too few lifeboats. Many people point to these similarities as evidence of extraordinary foresight. Historians generally explain the parallels differently. Robertson was an experienced sailor who understood the trends in shipbuilding and recognized the dangers of increasing ship size without sufficient safety measures. His novel appears to have been an educated prediction rather than a paranormal vision. It remains, however, one of the most remarkable literary coincidences ever recorded. History also contains stories from military leaders who trusted instinct over logic. General George S. Patton occasionally spoke about intuitive impressions during battle. British Prime Minister Winston Churchill reportedly altered plans several times because of unexplained feelings that later appeared justified. Whether these decisions resulted from unconscious analysis or something more remains impossible to determine. Even in modern business, intuition often plays an unexpected role. Many successful entrepreneurs describe making major decisions that initially defied logic. Only later did evidence emerge showing their instincts had been correct. Experienced investors, physicians, athletes, and emergency responders frequently report similar experiences. The common thread is not supernatural certainty. It is the feeling of knowing before understanding. Of course, stories alone cannot prove how intuition works. Human beings are natural storytellers. We search for meaning. We connect events. We remember extraordinary moments more vividly than ordinary ones. This tendency has helped shape culture for thousands of years. Yet it also reminds us why science demands careful evidence. A compelling story can inspire investigation. It cannot, by itself, establish a conclusion. Still, whether viewed through the lens of psychology, probability, or mystery, these accounts continue to remind us of one enduring truth. Sometimes the human mind seems capable of astonishing insights. The challenge is discovering where genuine intuition ends and where coincidence begins. Part 6. Can you strengthen your intuition? If intuition is a natural human ability, can it be improved? Can we become better at recognizing those quiet inner signals? Or is intuition simply something we're either born with or without? Researchers generally agree on one important point. Everyone possesses intuition to some degree. The difference lies in how accurately we recognize it and whether we know when to trust it. One of the greatest obstacles to intuition is constant distraction. Modern life surrounds us with noise. Smartphones, notifications, social media, news updates, emails, conversations, entertainment available every waking moment. Our attention is pulled in countless directions. In such an environment, the subtle impressions we call intuition can easily be drowned out. This is one reason practices like meditation have attracted growing scientific interest. For thousands of years, meditation has been used to quiet the constant chatter of the mind. Today, researchers have found that regular meditation can improve attention, emotional regulation, and self-awareness. While meditation does not grant psychic abilities, many practitioners report becoming more aware of subtle thoughts and feelings that might otherwise go unnoticed. By reducing mental noise, it may become easier to distinguish instinct from distraction. Mindfulness offers a similar benefit. Rather than dwelling on the past or worrying about the future, mindfulness encourages complete awareness of the present moment. This heightened awareness often allows people to notice details they previously overlooked. A slight hesitation in someone's voice, a brief expression crossing a face, a subtle inconsistency in a conversation. These observations may later contribute to what feels like intuitive insight. Another powerful teacher of intuition is experience. Think about learning to drive a car. At first, every action requires conscious effort, checking mirrors, watching traffic, adjusting speed. After years of practice, many of these actions become automatic. The brain develops efficient patterns. Experts in almost every field describe a similar transformation. A seasoned physician may recognize a rare illness within moments. An experienced musician senses when an instrument is slightly out of tune. A chess grandmaster immediately notices strategic patterns invisible to beginners. What appears to be intuition is often the product of thousands of hours of learning stored below conscious awareness. Psychologists sometimes describe this as implicit learning, knowledge acquired without consciously realizing it. The more experience we gain, the richer our subconscious database becomes, and the more accurate our intuitive judgments may become. Keeping a journal can also be surprisingly valuable. Some people record their intuitive impressions before learning the outcome. Later, they compare what they sensed with what actually happened. This simple practice serves two purposes. First, it helps identify moments when intuition proved genuinely useful. Second, it reveals occasions when confidence was misplaced. Over time, patterns begin to emerge. Many people discover that what they believed was intuition was actually anxiety, or wishful thinking, or fear. True intuition often feels remarkably different. People commonly describe it as calm, quiet, persistent. It doesn't usually shout, it whispers. Anxiety, by contrast, tends to be loud, urgent, repetitive, emotionally overwhelming. Learning to distinguish these two internal experiences may be one of the most valuable skills anyone can develop. Sleep also plays an important role. Scientists have found that the brain continues processing information during sleep. Problems that seem impossible before bed sometimes appear surprisingly simple the next morning. Many inventors, artists, and scientists have credited dreams or moments immediately after waking with providing unexpected solutions. The subconscious often continues searching for answers long after conscious effort has stopped. Nature appears to have a similar effect. Studies suggest that spending time outdoors can improve attention, reduce stress, and enhance creative thinking. Without constant sensory overload, the brain may become more receptive to subtle observations. This may explain why so many people report having their clearest insights while walking alone, hiking, gardening, or simply sitting beside the ocean. Perhaps intuition flourishes when the mind has room to think. At the same time, it's important to remember that intuition has limits. No matter how experienced we become, intuition should never replace careful evidence when the stakes are high. Doctors still perform medical tests, pilots still follow checklists, engineers still verify calculations, scientists still conduct experiments. The most successful decision-makers rarely choose between intuition and logic. They combine them. Intuition may suggest a possibility, reason evaluates it, evidence confirms or rejects it. Together they form a far more reliable guide than either one alone. So perhaps the goal isn't to become psychic. Perhaps it's something far more practical, to become more observant, more self-aware, more capable of recognizing the subtle signals our remarkable brains are constantly processing without our conscious knowledge, and in doing so, to better understand the quiet voice that has guided human beings throughout history. Part 7. When intuition goes wrong. If intuition can sometimes guide us toward remarkable decisions, why does it also lead us into serious mistakes? The answer lies in one of the most fascinating discoveries of modern psychology. The same mental shortcuts that make intuition so fast can also make it surprisingly unreliable. Our brains evolved to make decisions quickly. For most of human history, hesitation could be dangerous. Imagine hearing a sudden rustle in the tall grass. Your ancestors didn't have time to carefully analyze every possibility. If they assumed it might be a predator and ran away, they survived. If they paused too long to gather evidence, they might not. Evolution rewarded speed, not perfect accuracy. As a result, the human brain became exceptionally skilled at recognizing patterns. Sometimes, however, it recognizes patterns that aren't actually there. Have you ever looked up at the clouds and seen faces, animals, entire landscapes? Or noticed shapes in the bark of a tree or the surface of the moon? This tendency is known as pareidolia. The brain naturally searches for familiar patterns, even in random information. The same process can influence intuition. We may sense meaning where none exists. Coincidences begin to feel like destiny. Random events appear connected. This doesn't mean every intuitive feeling is mistaken. It simply reminds us that our minds are powerful pattern-making machines. Another common source of error is confirmation bias. Suppose someone believes they possess exceptionally accurate intuition. Whenever one prediction comes true, they remember it vividly. When dozens of predictions fail, those failures fade into the background. Gradually, their confidence grows, not because their intuition has become more accurate, but because memory has become selective. Psychologists have demonstrated this effect repeatedly. People naturally give greater attention to evidence supporting their beliefs than evidence contradicting them. This tendency affects everyone: scientists, judges, doctors, investors, politicians. No one is completely immune. Another trap is emotional reasoning. Fear can disguise itself as intuition. So can hope. Imagine waiting for the results of an important medical test. Every unusual sensation in your body suddenly feels significant. Your mind begins creating stories. You become convinced that something terrible or perhaps wonderfully positive is about to happen. But what you're experiencing may not be intuition at all. It may simply be anxiety magnifying every thought. Strong emotions influence perception in powerful ways. This is why psychologists often encourage people to ask themselves an important question. Am I sensing something quietly or reacting emotionally? The distinction is not always obvious. Past experiences also shape intuitive judgments. Someone who has previously been betrayed may instinctively distrust new people. Someone who has grown up in a safe, supportive environment may be naturally trusting. Neither reaction is necessarily wrong, but both are influenced by history. Our brains build shortcuts from experience. Those shortcuts often help us. Sometimes they mislead us. Professional expertise provides another interesting lesson. Experienced professionals often possess highly reliable intuition, but only within their field of expertise. A veteran firefighter may instantly recognize structural danger inside a burning building. A chess grandmaster may see winning moves almost immediately. An experienced physician may notice subtle symptoms others overlook. Outside their area of expertise, however, those same individuals are just as vulnerable to intuitive mistakes as everyone else. Experience creates dependable intuition only where genuine knowledge exists. This explains why experts sometimes make excellent decisions in one area while making poor decisions in another. One of the greatest demonstrations of faulty intuition comes from gambling. Many gamblers sincerely believe they can sense when a winning streak is about to begin. They develop rituals, lucky numbers, favorite machines, certain seats, special routines. Yet games of chance remain governed by probability, not intuition. The brain desperately wants to find patterns. Randomness refuses to cooperate. Financial markets offer similar examples. Investors often become convinced they can predict future movements based on instinct alone. Sometimes they succeed. Just as often, luck receives the credit while poor decisions are quietly forgotten. History contains countless examples of intelligent people making disastrous choices because they trusted intuition without seeking evidence. This does not mean intuition should be ignored. Far from it. The lesson is balance. Perhaps the wisest approach comes from combining three powerful tools. Intuition notices, reason analyzes, evidence verifies. When all three point in the same direction, confidence becomes far more justified. When they disagree, it may be wise to pause, ask more questions, gather more information. The goal is not to silence intuition, nor is it to follow every instinct unquestioningly. Instead, it is to recognize intuition for what it truly appears to be: a remarkable guide, an imperfect guide, but one that becomes far more valuable when partnered with careful thinking. As our understanding of the brain continues to grow, researchers are discovering that intuition and logic are not rivals, they are teammates, and together they may represent one of humanity's greatest strengths. Part 8. The Future of Intuition. For thousands of years, intuition was regarded as a mystery. Today, it has become a subject of serious scientific investigation. But in many ways, we may only be at the beginning. New technologies are allowing researchers to study the human brain with a level of precision that previous generations could never have imagined. Advanced brain imaging can now observe networks of neurons communicating in real time. Artificial intelligence can analyze patterns hidden within enormous amounts of data. Wearable devices can continuously monitor heart rate, breathing, skin conductance, sleep, and stress levels. Together, these tools are revealing something remarkable. The brain often reaches conclusions before conscious awareness catches up. Researchers studying decision-making have found that measurable brain activity sometimes appears fractions of a second before people report consciously making a choice. These findings have sparked fascinating discussions. Is the subconscious making decisions first? Does consciousness simply become aware of choices already underway? Or are both processes working together in ways we do not yet fully understand? The answers remain uncertain. Artificial intelligence has also entered the conversation. Modern AI systems excel at recognizing patterns. They examine millions of examples and identify relationships that humans often overlook. In many respects, AI performs something that resembles intuition. It does not truly understand in the human sense. Instead, it rapidly compares present information with enormous databases of previous examples. This has led some researchers to ask an intriguing question. Could human intuition operate in a somewhat similar way, not through silicon chips or computer code, but through billions of interconnected neurons shaped by a lifetime of experience? If so, intuition may represent one of nature's most sophisticated pattern recognition systems. Yet there remains one important difference. Humans possess emotion, empathy, creativity, conscious awareness. These qualities influence our intuitive judgments in ways machines cannot fully replicate. A physician may sense that something is wrong with a patient, not merely because of medical data, but because of subtle changes in posture, facial expression, tone of voice, and countless other signals gathered almost instantly. An experienced teacher may recognize that a child is struggling emotionally before any obvious signs appear. A musician may improvise without consciously planning every note. An artist may know when a painting feels complete. These forms of intuition involve experience blended with emotion and creativity. They are deeply human. Medicine offers one of the most exciting areas for future research. Scientists are exploring whether intuitive clinical judgments can be better understood and combined with advanced diagnostic technologies. Rather than replacing physicians, artificial intelligence may eventually work alongside them. AI can analyze vast quantities of medical information in seconds. Doctors contribute experience, empathy, ethical judgment, and intuition. Together, they may produce better decisions than either could achieve alone. Psychology is also evolving. Researchers increasingly recognize that intuition plays an essential role in emotional intelligence, understanding relationships, detecting dishonesty, resolving conflict, building trust. These abilities often depend upon subtle unconscious observations rather than deliberate reasoning. Meanwhile, consciousness itself remains one of science's greatest mysteries. How does subjective experience arise from physical brain activity? Why are we aware at all? Could consciousness possess properties we have not yet discovered? These questions remain unanswered. Some researchers argue that future discoveries will eventually explain intuition entirely through neuroscience. Others believe consciousness may prove to be far more complex than current theories suggest. History reminds us to remain humble. There was a time when electricity seemed magical, when invisible microbes were unknown, when radio waves appeared impossible. Scientific progress often transforms mystery into understanding. But it also reveals entirely new mysteries waiting to be explored. Perhaps intuition will eventually be explained completely by brain science. Perhaps new discoveries about consciousness will expand our understanding in unexpected ways, or perhaps the truth will combine elements of both perspectives. Whatever the answer, one thing seems certain. Human intuition has shaped history. It has guided explorers across unknown oceans, inspired artists to create timeless masterpieces, helped physicians recognize hidden illnesses, allowed firefighters, pilots, soldiers, and rescue workers to make life-saving decisions within seconds, influenced parents, teachers, inventors, scientists, and ordinary people making countless everyday choices. Whether we call it instinct, insight, pattern recognition, or inner knowing, it remains one of the most remarkable abilities we possess. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all. The human mind is far more extraordinary than we once imagined. Every moment, beneath conscious awareness, billions of neurons are working together, comparing memories, recognizing patterns, interpreting emotions, and quietly guiding us through an endlessly complex world. Sometimes, if we pause long enough to listen, we hear the answer before we understand the question. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of the power of human intuition. Whether you view intuition as a product of neuroscience, a gift refined by experience, a spiritual connection, or an enduring mystery, one fact remains beyond dispute. The quiet voice within has influenced humanity since the dawn of history, and it may still have much to teach us.